Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Now let's tune in for this incredible message. On today's episode, you're going to hear from Heather Childress. Heather is the Senior Vice President, Deputy General Counsel at Flex. Heather is passionate about workplace culture, next generation development initiatives, and change management. In 2021, Heather was named a Woman of Influence by Silicon Valley Business Journal. Heather is devoted to making positive impact on the community and is a huge proponent of gender equality in the workplace. Let's listen in as Heather reveals how she maintains composure under pressure.
These are the four elements that have really kind of helped me not crack under pressure. I talked a little bit before about deliberate calm, and this is kind of, the normal response is to pounce into action. I would say pause for pouncing. Take a step back and think through kind of what is the outcome? How serious is this? What do I really need to do? And don't come from like an irrational emotional reaction, but kind of step back and think through kind of where you want to be, what needs to happen, and how you get there. Resiliency. I've had a lot of things in my life growing up. My stepfather passed away of cancer while I was in college, and I got the best set of grades I got that semester. Probably some therapist is like, okay, you probably compartmentalized too much. But that was the way kind of I got through it. And so I level set with that experience with those things that I'm going through. Is this really the end of the earth? What can I do to make this better? And I've gotten through worse situations, so I can continue on. Relationships. Now, for me, relationships, there's kind of two parts here. There's your work colleague relationships. And for the most part, you better like them because you're going to spend more time with them than you probably do your families in a lot of ways. So I foster those relationships in times that are not in crisis, because when there is a crisis, you need to have those relationships in place. So for us, I deal with our board of directors a lot, and our company had a lot over the years. I've been there 7 years. 2018, we had a major whistleblower thing, which led to a material weakness, which led to shareholder litigation. Our CEO left. We got a new CEO, new CFO. Half of our board is new. It was just like constantly changing. And a large part of the way to get through that is building these relationships, particularly with some of our board members who saw me as a trusted advisor, trusted partner, and I the same. So even if there's a mess up along the way, they get over it because they know you're trying your best, you've worked through it, that sort of stuff. So relationships for work, and then relationships, family and friends, and fostering those relationships. What do we all do this for? I enjoy my job. I love it, but I love my family more. And so a lot of it is so that my family can have a different kind of life I did growing up. Self-care. I probably am not very good at this. I wish I was better. 17 seconds. I'm going to do it. Similar to you, your first story really resonated with me. I broke my back in a car accident in 2014. I really didn't have to have surgery, but I had to go through a lot of, I had always been like work, school, work, all the things, like all the way through. I took 10 months off to try and heal myself and prioritize self-care. Now I do it in different ways at work. Like if I can't get in an exercise, I'll be like, okay, 10 minutes of meditation on the Peloton app, just going to have have to do it today. And I'll be like, oh, I don't really have time for this, but I'll force myself to do it. And I notice a difference in how I'm feeling. And it helps me to remain calm in situations as they evolve and escalate. So this is Mackenzie's really good for those of you who don't kind of subscribe to their regular learning. Mackenzie's really good at putting out things like this. It's kind of another look at how to remain calm. Prioritize. What are your priorities? Why are you doing things? Your roles with work, family members, and kind of be inspirational. I'm big into, I love mentoring and I love really, helping bring the next generation leaders along. And so that's a huge, and I think if you're a leader who's freaking out during a crisis, you're not going to have that connection with a mentee. They're not going to want you to mentor them for sure. Time, be present when you're present. I struggle with my biggest crisis today was my son he's 5.5, was his school ends on a minimum day. He's supposed to go to soccer practice. How am I going to get him? I'm here. My husband can't get off, which is a small crisis on the grand scheme of things that I'm working with work. But for my family, it's I want him to have fun and go to soccer. So prioritizing that and then knowing I'm coming here and then going to the office after this and being present in each one of those. And knowing when I have to make trade-offs, self-awareness and with in the self-care realm. This is just another interesting thing from the University of Berkeley on kind of your and performance based on stress levels, low, medium, high, and performance. You can see it's like a curve that's in the middle for optimal performance. No big surprise. Some of us, used to be a deal junkie, as you call them, when I was in private practice at a law firm. And I would just go adrenaline to adrenaline, deal to deal to deal. Ultimately, that's not a way to work. My boss views things as an opportunity. And he once said to me, when we were going through all these crises at Flex, he said, Heather, just view this as a development opportunity. And I looked at him and we're very close. And I said, I do. And I appreciate everything. Sometimes I would just like to develop a little less. Could I take 6 months of no development? So I've had to put some boundaries in to get myself off the hamster wheel. And I think that's important to kind of get that of the range ops performance, if you will.
Oh, we are going to stop right here, ladies, because this is gold and we're about to take it deeper. I'm going to start where Heather left off, that infamous hamster wheel of overwhelm. Here's the greatest lesson that I spent thousands of dollars on, not to mention the countless unnecessarily amount of hours and wasted energy. Are you ready? Here it is. The hamster wheel is a choice. Yep, all of it. Getting on it, running on it like a maniac. You just keep running and running and you're really not going anywhere. You're just getting exhausted. It's all a choice. And perhaps you feel a bit of resistance growing towards me as I make that statement. And I get it, because I was the same way. I think I had mentioned on a previous episode that I'm a mom of 6 kids. And to clarify, out of those 6 kids, I had 4 of them at one time. Yep, quadruplets. 4 babies at one time. I lived and breathed overwhelm in those first few years. It was a constant companion for me. I had 6 kids, a husband, and 2 companies. And for all intents and purposes, I was justified in being on my hamster wheel of overwhelm. But the hard to swallow truth was I had created thought patterns, habits, and behaviors in a time of survival that I had carried on way longer than I should have. Living in a state of overwhelm had become my default way of being. And here's the rub about overwhelm being your default line. If you're not actively rowing upstream towards a higher way of being, when your arms get tired, that current is going to take you right back down where you started from. That current is your behavior, habits, your thought patterns, just FYI. Thankfully, after working with a coach and being involved in mastermind groups of women who were committed to calling each other higher, I finally had to face the truth that I was choosing to remain overwhelmed. I think so often we seek validation for the decisions we have made and continue to make because we don't want to row upstream. It's freaking hard and exhausting. We want so badly to grow and expand into our greatest potential, but we can't see the forest through the trees. Anytime I was told, you can't see the forest through the trees, I would respond with, yeah, it's because I'm running on the ground, I'm tripping over the roots, and I'm getting smacked in the face by the branches. And y'all, real life story, this morning, I met a friend to go run, and we were walking in the parking lot, and I was on the other side of this like tree median, but there's no leaves on all the trees, because it's winter and gross outside. And I was looking at her and she was looking at me as we were walking and talking, and she straight up ran face smack into a branch. And I immediately thought of this exact scenario because that's life. Everybody's like, oh, big picture thinking, get the big picture, especially now as we're headed into the new year. Everybody's like, oh, think of 2023 and all it has to offer and all these amazing opportunities. Bam, branch in the face. And so we have to start understanding what we're choosing to see, right? And so back to being that overwhelmed, exhausted mom, being frustrated, not being able to see the forest through the trees because I was getting smacked in the face by the branches. I was already exhausted from just living my life. And now I was going to have to choose to go through a process that was also hard and exhausting just in order to get off the hamster wheel. That made no sense to me. And this whole concept of having to go through hard to get to almost a simpler way or an ease, it was messing with my mind. And that's when I realized perhaps I don't have to make sense of it. And this is where I was able to develop the discipline, like Heather suggests, of prioritizing self-care. Not in the sense of bubble bath and pedicures. I mean, they're great. I'm all for them. But developing a discipline around my priorities, my time, my energy, my mind, my investments, all of it. I couldn't continue with the same thoughts, habits, and behaviors and expect my life to be any different than the life that those things had created. I mean, that's Einstein's definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again while expecting different results. If you think about a water bottle, if I were to take the cap off and apply pressure to the sides, what will come out? No, this is not a trick question. What will come out when I apply pressure to the sides? Water. Water comes out. Now imagine you are the bottle. What's going to come out when the pressure is being applied to you? Is it joy, sunshine, and snuggles? Nope. Not if you're anxious, depressed, and hot-tempered. We can say what we want to come out, what we desire to come out, and we might really believe that that's what will come out. But what we're holding on to in our inside, that we're kind of tucking away in the shame closet where we don't want anybody else to know that we're going through ish, that's what's really revealed when we're under pressure, especially those situations that apply so much pressure that even more comes out. And that takes me to Heather's next point, which is about relationships. She says to nurture those relationships when you're not in times of crisis. Neurologically speaking, high emotion equals low intelligence. This is why surgeons don't operate on their own kids and detectives don't investigate within their own family, because they're bringing up a higher sense of emotion. And so they're not able to look at things clearly. That intelligence has lowered. It all has to do with how your brain operates. Just like you can't entertain both a positive thought and a negative thought at the same time. One will have to win out. So both in the relationship with yourself in regards to everything we've talked about so far, and in your relationship with others, you have to do the hard work in the off season. I think we've all experienced both life-giving and soul-sucking relationships. And the majority of us would choose to not be in the relationships with the soul suckers. We want to build and grow relationships with people we enjoy, the people we get along with and agree with. But like 90% of those that are in your family relationships and in your work relationships aren't made up of those type of people that we love and enjoy so much. Now, if you're one of the lucky ones where you are, that's amazing. But both in your family and at your job, you don't always get to choose who's in those relationships. We have to be able to foster relationships with all kinds of people. And the number one tip to be able to do this is to remember that everyone has value. And if you're struggling to see it, it's time to check yourself. Check your motives. Are you just trying to communicate with this person because that's what you should do? Or are you trying to connect with this person because that's what relationships are all about? Side note, shoulding all over yourself is never the way to go. Okay, I digress. Focus on finding the value. I promise you, it's there. And within yourself, remember, when connecting with others, you don't have anything to prove. You only have something to give. So often we get so frustrated with people because we're trying to prove ourselves. We're trying to prove our worth. We're trying to prove our value. We're trying to prove our point, right? Why we think and feel a certain way. But if we take that lens off and just say, you know what, I don't have anything to prove in this relationship. I only have something to give. Whether they receive it or not isn't up to you. Focus on what you have to give, not trying to prove something, okay? And when you're able to hold that perspective, when pressure is applied, when that pressure gives you the squeeze like the water bottle, the right response is going to come out, okay? Moving on. Heather's next point on how to maintain composure under pressure is resiliency. I love the question she asked herself. Is this really the end of the world? And then she reminds herself of all the stuff she's already come through before. I like to think of that process as finding my resilience anchor points. We have all been through hard times. And we've been faced with all kinds of stumbling blocks and obstacles. But when you focus back on those times with the perspective you now hold as someone who is capable to overcome those times, because you already have, you are entering into this new energy of resilience instead of coming at your problem from this energy that holds dread and anxiety. One of the many lessons that having quadruplets taught me is that we are far more capable to achieve more than we ever imagined possible. I remember being pregnant with my first child, who was a singleton, and saying at my baby shower, I don't know how people have twins. How do they fit? There's literally no room to have one more in there. I don't understand. I was trying to make sense of it. Little did I know just how capable my body was to stretch. Yes, physically, but carrying and having quadruplets, it stretched me in all the ways, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And now that I have probably lost you to imagining just how big my stomach must have been. Let's land this plane and finish with Heather's final point of deliberate calm. And just to fulfill what you were looking for, yes, my stomach was huge. Okay. When I would sit down, my stomach reached to my knees. Okay. It's real big. It's real big. Anyway, back to Heather. She encouraged us. I love this phrase. Pause before the pounce. Think through the process. Start with your desired outcome and reverse engineer from there. Ask yourself, how would the person achieving this outcome that I desire, how would she be behaving? What feelings would she have to have in order to drive that behavior? And what is she thinking about to produce those feelings? I learned a long time ago about the power of being deliberately calm. Slow down and think about what you're thinking about. Again, whatever is on the inside is going to come out when you are squeezed, when the pressure is applied. So start developing the skill of the pause now. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause. Even if you are running late, a negative reaction is only hurting you. Because I promise you, that person is none the wiser to the amount of torment that you just brought on yourself and anxiety. They're going about their business and about their day, and so should you. When you don't get the promotion, pause. When your kid spills his cup all over the counter because he didn't listen to you when you asked him to wait, pause. Growing your pause muscle in these small times, it will help you tremendously in the intense times. And if you listen to episode 4, you know how crucial a 17-second pause can be to determining the state that you respond from. All right, my friends, that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, shoot me a message over on Instagram at Women Leaders Podcast and tell me what's been happening in your life. Where are you coming from? What's coming out when you're being squeezed? There's no shame. There's no judgment, because we truly believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. And if you're wanting more connection, more support, more accountability, you gotta go check out the Women Leaders Association membership. We have masterminds, networking opportunities. Simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com and you have all the information there on how you can sign up. Okay? Until next week, my friends. Bye for now.